He thought he was helping a lost stranger in the woods. He never imagined she was a millionaire running from a life money couldn't fix. Raghav lived a simple life in a sleepy mountain town where nothing much ever changed. His days were spent fixing bikes, chopping wood, and helping out at the local cafe. Everyone in the village knew him. Kind, dependable, always the first to lend a hand. But beneath his calm routine, there was a quiet longing. A feeling that life had more to offer than just silent hills and familiar faces. One evening, while returning from the forest trail with a basket of wild mushrooms, Raghav noticed something strange, a bright-colored scarf caught on a thorn bush. Curious, he followed the trail deeper into the woods, past where the usual hikers ever went. That's when he saw her. A young woman, barefoot with messy hair and a bruised arm, sitting by a rock with a panicked look in her eyes. Her clothes were torn, but not cheap. Real silk, designer stitching. She looked like she didn't belong here at all. "Hey," Raghav said gently, kneeling down. "Are you hurt? Are you lost?" She looked up at him, eyes wide. Then she whispered, "Please, don't call anyone. Just help me get out of here. I can't go back." He stared at her, confused and concerned. "What do you mean?" She took a shaky breath. "My name is Sana, and I'm not lost. I ran away." "From what?" he asked, more intrigued than ever. She looked over her shoulder, as if afraid someone was following. "From everything," she said. "I'm a millionaire's daughter, and I just escaped my own engagement." Raghav's quiet world was about to explode into a story of secrets, danger, and a connection he never saw coming. Raghav didn't press her right away. He could see the fear in her eyes, raw, unfiltered, real. So instead of questions, he offered his jacket, handed her a bottle of water, and said, "Let's get you somewhere safe first." They walked quietly through the woods, Sana limping slightly, until they reached his modest wooden cottage nestled at the edge of the trees. Inside, the room was simple: a fire stove, a single bed, and shelves lined with old books. Nothing fancy. But to Sana, it felt like safety. Once she had warmed up and eaten, the words began to pour out. Her name was Sana Rathore, daughter of industrialist Mahendra Rathore, one of the richest and most powerful men in the country. She was scheduled to be married in 5 days to the heir of another wealthy family. The engagement had been arranged, like a business merger. Love didn't matter. "But I couldn't do it," she said, her voice cracking. "He wasn't just arrogant, he was controlling, cruel, and when I told my parents I didn't want to marry him, they said I was being selfish, that I'd ruin their reputation." Raghav listened in silence, stunned by the contrast between her background and her broken voice. "So I ran," she continued. "No phone, no driver. I took a local bus and walked into these woods. I thought maybe I'd disappear, be no one for a while." Raghav looked at her closely. "You're not no one," he said softly. "You're just someone who forgot how strong she is." Sana's eyes filled with tears, not from pain, but from relief. It was the first time in a long time someone saw her, not as a fortune, not as a status symbol, but as a person. But little did they know, someone else was already looking for her. And soon, that quiet cabin would no longer be safe. The next morning brought with it more than just sunlight. As Raghav prepared tea, Sana stood by the window, watching the forest sway in the breeze. She looked calmer, almost at peace. But peace never lasts when the world you're running from has money, power, and reach. A black SUV rolled through the village just after noon. It didn't belong there. The tinted windows, the sharp-dressed men asking questions. The locals didn't say much. Raghav was well-liked, and no one trusted strangers in suits. Back at the cottage, Raghav noticed a figure on the ridge above the trees, someone watching with binoculars. "They found you," he said quietly, closing the curtains. Sana's face paled. What are they going to do if they catch me? He looked her in the eyes. They're not going to. I promise. Raghav acted fast. He borrowed a neighbor's old jeep, packed a bag, and helped Sana into the back, hidden beneath a pile of sacks. They drove off-road, through paths only he knew, places maps didn't show. By the time the SUV reached his home, it was empty. They stayed the night in an abandoned shepherd's hut on a cliffside overlooking the valley. There was no electricity, no signal, but for the first time, Sana didn't feel scared. Under the stars, wrapped in a borrowed blanket, she turned to Raghav and said, "Why are you helping me like this? You don't even know me." He looked at her, eyes steady. Because everyone deserves to be heard, and because maybe I needed you too, even before I knew it. Sana smiled through the tears, but deep down, she knew this couldn't last forever. The world was closing in, and they had one more move to make, before it was too late. By morning, the hunt had escalated. News channels were broadcasting Sana's disappearance, twisting the story. Millionaire's daughter missing, rumors of kidnapping. Her family offered a massive reward. The man she was supposed to marry went on record, playing the victim. But Sana wasn't missing. She was right there, more found than ever before. I have to face them, she told Raghav as they watched the headlines from a tiny tea stall radio in a distant village. But not on their terms. On mine, Raghav nodded. Then let's end it. Your way. That afternoon, with a calm that surprised even herself, Sana walked into the nearest police station and gave her statement. She told the truth. Everything. That she ran, that she wasn't kidnapped, that she was being forced into a life she never chose. And she named names, of the threats, of the manipulation, of the fiancé who made her feel trapped. The media had a field day. But this time, she owned the story. 2 months later, Sana Rathore stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony of a new women's shelter, funded with her own trust, created after breaking ties with her father's empire. And right beside her stood Raghav, not as her bodyguard, not as a chapter she'd left behind, but as her partner. They didn't rush into love. There was too much healing to do. But they built something better: respect, safety, and truth. In interviews, Sana simply said, "I found myself in the woods that day, and someone who reminded me that being lost doesn't mean you're broken." And Raghav? He left the hills behind for the first time in his life. Not because he wanted wealth, but because he had found someone worth walking through any forest for.